We begin today in Ukraine and the southeastern port city of Mariupol. Soldiers there are refusing to surrender to Russian forces, and it may cost them their lives. The city is under siege. An estimated 100,000 people remain, and routes to evacuate civilians have failed. Ukrainian soldiers are holding out in a steel plant, ignoring the calls from Russian forces to lay down their arms and surrender. President Zelensky on Saturday called the situation, quote, inhumane. CBS News foreign correspondent Chris Livesay has more on the showdown in Mariupol and other devastating attacks across Ukraine.
The Kyiv region, now a graveyard. The bodies of more than 900 civilians have been found in and around the capital, police say. The killing continues at Kharkiv, close to Russia's border, where overnight shelling of a residential area killed 7 people, including a 7-month-old, Ukraine's local authorities say. But nowhere is the misery more total than Mariupol. Thousands have been killed in weeks of airstrikes, artillery, even starvation. Russia has now claimed victory. If true, we may never know the full scale of horror. But Chernihiv in northern Ukraine offers a glimpse. It, too, was encircled by Russian forces, cut off from food, water, and electricity for weeks, until Ukrainian forces, dramatically outgunned, pushed them back. In one remarkable instance, shooting down this bomber, it crashed into this house, killing 1 man inside. But shockingly, no more. Its payload failing to detonate on impact, landing on Nikolai's doorstep instead. We heard the air raid sirens, he says. I was just sitting and praying when all of a sudden there was a huge boom and flames. The 2 pilots ejected. 1 survived, and not just anyone. Here he is posing with Vladimir Putin and his ally, Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, where this ace carried out airstrikes. Soon after his capture, Russia pulled back its forces from Chernihiv, and what was supposed to be a minor speed bump on the way to Kyiv turned into a major setback for Russia, though not without a devastating cost to Ukraine.
A devastating cost indeed. Chris joins us now from Kyiv. Chris, thanks for that reporting. So difficult to see those bodies, as we could see the hands tied behind their backs. Tell us more about what you saw when in Chernihiv.
Well, we witnessed what is thought to be one of the deadliest single instances of the entire war to date, the aftermath of an airstrike that killed at least 50 people in an apartment block. And we spoke to a survivor of that attack, an elderly woman who told us of the moment she walked inside of a room and was covered in glass. And all she remembers is hearing a big boom and how shocked she was to still be alive. And then she took us afterwards into her bunker beneath an apartment block where at one point about 200 people were crammed into this dark and tiny and very cold space. And there's still a lot of people down there. When we were there, it was all babushkas, you know, these little old Ukrainian women too afraid to come to the surface because they think that Russian soldiers and Russian bombers could come back just as quickly as they left.
Ukraine's foreign minister, Chris, joined our colleague Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation Sunday. This is what he had to say about the situation in Mariupol.
The situation in Mariupol is both dire militarily and heartbreaking. The city doesn't exist anymore. The remainings of the Ukrainian army and large group of civilians are basically encircled by the Russian forces. They continue their struggle, but it seems from the way Russian army behaves in Mariupol, they decided to raze the city to the ground at any cost.
Chris, what could happen if Mariupol falls to Russian forces?
Well, I've been to Mariupol. I spent a good amount of time there before the war, so this is especially heartbreaking for me. It sits just above Crimea, the peninsula Russia annexed in 2014. If Mariupol falls, Russian troops would be able to stream into southern Ukraine by land and potentially take other cities in eastern Ukraine as well.
Austria's chancellor met with Putin face-to-face last week. He says that Putin thinks that Russia may be winning the war. What are the implications of that, Chris?
Well, if you talk to Ukrainians, they would certainly beg to differ. They think they're winning. Mariupol may have fallen by the time this interview is over, but Kyiv has not. Kyiv, where I am right now, I should mention, Russia thought it would fall in 3 days, but here we are more than 50 days later, and it's still standing while the Russian warship Moskva has sunk to the bottom of the Black Sea. So Ukrainians feel extremely optimistic about their chances, especially if they get more of that crucial military aid they need from places like the United States.
Do you know anything more about Russian troop movements and timelines as Ukraine anticipates that major battle in the Donbas region?
Well, Ukraine beat back Russia so badly, it's going to take a while to mobilize a needed 60,000 reservists. That's according to a senior Pentagon official. Now, Donbas offers tactical advantages for Russia with shorter supply lines and head-to-head battles where it can potentially muscle its way through. Unlike the kind of guerrilla warfare we've seen favoring Ukraine up until this point. Ukraine's foreign minister says we'll see thousands of tanks, planes, and artillery, unlike anything we've seen since World War II.
All right. Chris Livesay there in Kyiv, thank you.